Hello, and welcome to another video. Today, I will be making some card changes to a few of my EDH decks. This is a follow-up to a previous video where I was going through a big stack of cards that I had intentions of putting into my decks. And so today we will be making some of those deck modifications. So right here I have my decks for Doran the Siege Tower, Arabo, Roar of the World, and Adrix and Nev Twin Casters. And over here is a deck that I haven't shown you yet, but it's a weird one and it's a really fun concept, and I will be making a video with it for you, but that is for another time. Over here there's just a bunch of tokens, and then there's the cards that we need to think about today. So let's start with the Adrix and Nev Twin Casters deck, because that one only has a couple of cards that we need to put in. So it should be really easy to knock out. So, just to sort of recap what this deck is about, it is a token-themed deck, and it just wants to create and copy as many creature tokens as possible. And there's only 2 cards to update. The Soul Ring is just a 1-to-1 swap, I think, just to get the interesting art in there. And then the Doubling Season, I believe I had kind of earmarked to replace a Panharmonicon in here that I think just ended up not being that useful. So let's go ahead and take a look. There's our Soul Ring and the Panharmonicon. Alright, so that one was pretty easy. The other ones I'm sure are going to be quite a bit more difficult. Let's do Doran next. Alright, so we have a land and a couple spells and 2 creatures. Let's do the land first. I put these in a rough order so it would be a little easier for us to go through. I'm kind of hoping that I can get away with just replacing a basic land, but I know there really aren't that many. I think it would make sense to replace a forest, but I do want to be mindful of adding in a land that enters the battlefield tapped. I don't know if I'm actually super sold on having Mutavault in this deck. And I also wonder if this might be able to replace Evolving Wilds. It gives us access to any of our colors, the same way Evolving Wilds kind of would. Although, I don't know, I kind of do think it is important to be able to get your basic lands. Maybe Mutavault then? I do think creature lands are really useful, but this one doesn't tap for any colored mana, and it is just a 2/2, which isn't totally in theme with this deck. So yeah, I think I'll swap out Mutavault here. Okay, so now we have 2 creatures to consider. This one is pretty much just another Doran effect. I don't think this deck has anything that gives initiative, so unless there's a way to get it from another person, then that second ability that doubles the toughness isn't going to be happening. So I guess the question is, how badly do we want another effect that makes creatures attack with their toughness? I don't think I would want to replace a tree folk with this. So maybe look at our non-tree folk things. Oh yeah, what do we have for artifacts? Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think I'm willing to budge on any of those. So yeah, I don't think this guy's gonna make the cut. But we do have a tree folk to think about. So this will give +2/+2 to up to 2 target creatures whenever this or another tree folk enters the battlefield. So that seems pretty decent. I don't know. I know I mentioned in the video where I was going through the pile of cards to add to my decks that finding the cuts was going to be very difficult for me, and that is proving super true because I can see value in like all of these. I don't really want to make any cuts, but I first pulled out Nylea because her activated ability that gives +2/+2 to one creature. So I thought Quick Beam could kind of replace that ability, but Nylea does give all of your creatures trample, and that is actually super important. So I think I'm gonna have to keep her in. I also pulled out Day of Judgment. Kinda weird, I guess. It's not a similar ability at all. But I don't feel particularly attached to board wipes. And there's 2 other ones in the deck anyway. So I don't think I mind shaving down one of them. Alright. And then we have 2 spells. One will go and find basic lands, and the other will grow a creature and potentially have it fight. They both care about power being 4 or greater, and I'm actually a little bit concerned about the number of targets they might have, since a lot of the tree folk are fairly low-powered creatures. So let's actually separate those out so we can visualize how they might actually look. So that's pretty close. It's almost like a 50-50 split. So the Ent's Fury will put a +1/+1 counter on the creature before it checks the power. So let's find the things that have 3 power because those will also work. I do kind of like the Ent's Fury because with all of the high toughness in here, I think it's pretty likely that the tree folk would survive the fight. A lot of the removal that's in here is either unconditional creature removal or exiles creatures, which could be preferable to sending them to the graveyard, or doesn't specify that it has to be a creature. It might just be permanent removal. So I wouldn't want to downgrade any of that. The only one that I'm really even considering is Go for the Throat because of the non-artifact creature part. So at least Ent's Fury would be able to take down an artifact creature, provided the toughness is less than the power of my creature. But I don't really know if that's a strong enough case to want to replace this card. I could maybe just try it out for a little bit and see if I like it. So maybe I'll do that and then keep the Go for the Throat close by in case I don't like that change and want to put it back. So I guess I'll give that a try and see how it goes. and then I'll just hold on to Entish Restoration for now. All right. The last deck that I have for today is Arabo, Roar of the World. And this is a Cat's Creature deck with a major equipment theme in it. And there were a lot of cards to put into this one. So I'm sure this will also be extremely difficult for me. Especially when we're talking cats, right? Like, how can I cut a cat? Oh, and I found another card that I don't think I showed in the pile sorting video. But Lion Sash also wants to go in this deck. It's kind of the ultimate combination here of a cat and equipment. So it's almost all equipment and equipment tutors. And Kahira is just replacing one that's already in here. So that's an easy replacement. She's looking good. Oh yeah, Swiftfoot Boots is also just a quick replacement. All of these cards are in cat sleeves, by the way, which is very important. Okay. So we have a bunch of equipment and a sorcery. So I'll set the land aside because I don't think we'll be looking at that much. So let's look at replacing our sorcery first. Not a lot here that I really want to get rid of. Maybe Weird Harvest, though. It's definitely a powerful effect. Maybe not super in line with what we need to be doing. So I think I'm okay with that. Lion Sash could probably replace either a creature or an equipment. So let's take a look at our creatures. I am maybe looking at Oreskos Explorer here. It's not a bad card, and it has certainly helped me out before, but when it's late in the game, this is kind of just a dead draw. So I think I'd be okay making this swap. Alright. Now we just have a bunch of equipment to think about. I'm thinking that I would like to swap out the Sword of Hearth and Home for the Sword of Truth and Justice. Although I think kind of the more swords the better here. Having protection from green and white is kind of a kicker in this deck. Arahbo really needs to be able to target creatures, and I don't want to prevent that from happening. So I think this sword kind of just has to go. I'm also thinking that maybe we can get rid of Skull Clamp. Like, again, I know it's really powerful, but in this deck, most creatures' toughness isn't low enough to be able to put this on and, just chain through a bunch of 1/1s and draw a ton of cards. There are creatures that make some 1/1 cats, but there's also cat lords that improve the power and toughness. Even though it's still good when the creatures die from combat or removal, maybe it's not quite as consistent as it would be ideally. So I think maybe just swapping this out with Jite could be a good option. I'm having some second thoughts about Armory of Aerois. I have 2 other EDH decks that both care a lot about +1/+1 counters. I think maybe suiting up a Hydra or something like that with this, or enabling a creature to be a proliferate target might be a little bit better than having it in cats. I think I would like to consider this card for one of those decks instead. I'll show that in the follow-up to this video, so we can talk about this a bit more very soon. So that just leaves us with Godsend. I don't know that this third ability is going to be particularly helpful in a singleton format, but being able to attack and potentially exile some creatures definitely seems powerful. I don't really want to get rid of much that gives trample. That is a very important ability for the creatures to have. So I'm kind of thinking about either of these. Sword of Vengeance does give a lot of keywords, including trample, but it is a bit on the pricier side to cast and equip, and it doesn't improve toughness. And Basilisk Collar I do like, but the ability to exile blockers I think is probably pretty similar to Death Touch. And the lifelink is a nice bonus, but I'm not super attached to it. There are other ways to have lifelink in this deck. Well, Godsend is also pretty expensive, but it does give +3/+3, which is considerably better than +2/+0. So I think we can try this swap. And that was the last one. Thank you so much for joining me today while I went through the excruciating task of updating my EDH decks. And we'll have even more coming up very soon, where I will update my Hydra deck and my Proliferate deck. So if you like this type of video, make sure you keep an eye out for that in the next few weeks. As always, make sure you leave a comment and let me know what you think. Would you have made similar replacements? Or would you have done something differently? Do you think I chickened out a couple times by not going with some of the cards that I picked out? Let's make sure we talk down in the comments. Of course, please make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. I very much appreciate the support, and it really helps me keep going and putting out new Magic the Gathering ASMR videos every Monday and Friday. But, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.